Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to Romania once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. Now, we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel quite a few times before. These guys are a very well respected name in the Romanian craft beer scene, and over the last few years, they've really been expanding and getting their name out there across Europe and further afield. If people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're very solid all round. Pretty much everything I've tried from these guys has been very, very good. Lots of different styles. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have had from this brewery a couple of times before, one that I know they can do very, very well. And this beer is one of their stronger offerings from what I can remember. I've actually tried one of the previous versions of this beer, if I'm not mistaken, too. But yeah, that one was pretty awesome. So I'm really curious to see what this particular version is going to have. So yeah, needless to say, very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to head back to Romania. We're going to go a little bit to the south of the capital Bucharest to a little place called Jilava, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful hop Hooligans. So this particular beer is called Apocrypha, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, hopefully. This comes in at 15.5% ABV, so an absolute monster. But it's an Imperial Stout aged in maple, bourbon and rum barrels. So yeah, this is of course the 2024 version. I think I tried the 2022 version, if I'm not mistaken, when I was working at the Bishop's Arms in Malmö back in Sweden, and that one was an absolute monster. So I'm quite curious to see how this one turns out. Very, very big flavoured Imperial Stout from what I remember. But yeah, at 15.5% ABV, this is definitely a sharer beer, so that is what I'll be doing after I finish filming this video. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. Always nice to return to Hop Hooligans and to review some Romanian beers for you here on the channel, of course. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Hop Hooligans before, and we will definitely add more to that list at some point in the near future because we get their beers quite regularly here in Hong Kong, which I'm very happy about. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Romanian playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, so do please keep your Romanian brewery recommendations coming in because we'll see what we can do about those. But yeah, do check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, I have to say. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Hop Hooligans once again then. So, Hop Hooligans, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Jilava, which is to the south of Bucharest, the Romanian capital, and the company has been active since 2016, and it was founded by Cristian Miniadinu and Mircea Georgescu. So the story of Hop Hooligans began when Cristi and Mircea teamed up with a guy called Petre Ion, who was the founder of Beer O'Clock, which was one of the first craft beer bars in all of Romania. But about a year after the launch of the brewery, Petre sadly died in a car accident. That was April 2017. And after this, times proved to be really hard for the company. But thankfully, they managed to persevere, and they've gone on to be very, very strong. But they built a reputation for themselves early on by brewing a variety of different styles and doing lots of collaborations with other breweries across Europe. So yeah, that was one of the reasons that Hop Hooligans, along with Beretta, really got Romanian craft beer recognised across the continent. But in 2018, they started canning their beers, and so they became the first brewery in Romania to do so. And the following year, they partnered up with Beretta to organise Haze Fest, which was the very first Romanian craft beer festival. In September of 2020, they opened up their tap room in Bucharest, and they've been working to increased the capacity of the brewery over the last few years. But as of November 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 458 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Hop Hooligans for the moment. These guys are a very well respected brewery at the moment, but in my mind still kind of quite up and coming. More and more people finding out about these guys, but yeah, definitely one of the European breweries that you really need to check out if you get the chance. But that is everything, as I say, I can tell you about these guys for the moment. But check out the brewery website, follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Beer Advocate and Untappd pages to learn a little bit more about all those different beers that they've done. But yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So the artwork on this one, as you can see, is pretty interesting. I have to say, Apocrypha. I'm not 100% sure where the name in this one actually comes from. I tried Googling it earlier, and actually all I got was results about the beer. It must be my cookies and stuff that's making that happen with Google. But yeah, the artwork on this one is really quite nice. Maybe it means like apocalypse in Romanian or something like that. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, might actually pause the video and just check that quickly. Just hold on a second. Alright, so upon a little quick Google there about the name of this one, the thing about it being the Romanian for apocalypse is not true. Apocrypha apparently are biblical writings that could not be authenticated, and so they weren't put into the Bible. So apparently that is the meaning of the word. So yeah, I'm guessing that's the reason for the kind of satanic artwork on this one. But of course I love a little bit of heavy metal, so that's probably the reason why I like this artwork so much. You can see this one has a nice sort of red wax top on it, because you could of course age this beer for quite a while if you really wanted to. It says on the side here, written in darkness and blood and under careless gaze from lords up in the heavens, its words deep in wounds, each syllable cutting limbs and setting eyes aflame, tucked away from hateful spirits and their venomous talons. Yeah, but like we said, this one comes in at 15.5% ABV, a maple, bourbon and rum barrel aged Imperial Stout. So yeah, this one, as I say, I tried the 2021 or 2022 vintage if I'm not mistaken, and it was a monster. So I'm really curious to see what this is going to have in store for us. This one's 375 millilitres. If memory serves me correctly, I bought this one at one of the wine rack stores here in Hong Kong. Actually, it was only about 125 Hong Kong dollars, so that's maybe about 14 euros, £12.50 sterling, something like that. But let's get it out into the glass and see how we go. I'm really looking forward to this. Oh, quite a bit of carbonation there as we open it up. But yeah, a wee bit of smoke on the opening as well. But I'll tell you something, you can smell the brown sugar off this as soon as you open it up. And just look at that, look how thick this thing is. But yeah, this will be getting shared after the video. Rest assured, I will not be drinking all of this myself, because that would be a hell of an undertaking, no matter how good it is. Because I remember this thing being thick as hell, and it's poured that way, of course, as you could see. So, yeah, as you can see, this beer has poured with pretty much no head. You can just see a little foamy layer on the side of the glass, then I would describe that as being very kind of dark and sort of tan in colour, if you like. But as you would expect, this beer has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. If you shine the light through it, you do get a little bit of that kind of you know, Pepsi Cola sort of colour out of it, that little bit of kind of edge there. But yeah, remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But when it comes to black beers like Imperial Stouts, that's not really going to make much of a difference. It's very, very difficult to affect the colour of those beers with it's very difficult to affect the colour of those beers with different adjuncts and things like that. But yeah, really no carbonation visible in this one, which would explain the lack of a head. But yeah, when it's barrel aged and it's 15.5%, that's kind of to be expected, in all honesty. Yeah, I don't think we can say much else about the appearance of this one. The only other thing I would say is you can see a couple of little bubbles just making their way up to the side of the glass there and that little foamy ring. But yeah, in terms of what you would expect appearance wise from an Imperial Stout, there is nothing overly surprising about this. But yeah, let's have a little look at the nose then and see what this one is going to have in store for us. I think this is going to be an absolute monster. Oh, yeah. Pretty much as I remember this thing, the brown sugar just jumps straight out at you, and when you've got maple syrup, bourbon and rum barrels in this thing, that is to be expected. And it just going by the level of aroma you have in this beer, I'm guessing that this one is going to have a hell of a lot of oats in it, because you can smell that sort of creaminess out of it already. But I think this one will be a double or even a triple mash. There's a few ways you can play with Imperial Stouts. You can of course barrel age them, where you're going to sacrifice a little bit of the mouthfeel to get all the infused flavours. You can give them a longer wort boil, and that is going to give you a more kind of leathery sort of brown sugary type flavour, which can increase the complexity. And you can also do double mashes and things, which is going to give you a really very thick mouthfeel, in fact. So yeah, there's things like that you can do to play with these styles, and I suspect this one with the barrel aging, and I think probably it's a double mash at this at 15.5% ABV, in all honesty. You can kind of smell that out of it too. But yeah, the aroma of this is absolutely beautiful. So let's just do as we always do. We'll go through it, we'll break it down and explain it that wee bit more. So yeah, the backbone of this beer, and this is giving you everything you'd expect from a big Imperial Stout like this. The brown sugars, the chocolate, and the sort of cakey notes and things, everything is there. But yeah, let's just go through it. The backbone of this beer is the lovely, smooth, oaky character. The spirit, like, you've got a hell of a lot of brown sugar in there. I think the maple syrup is the I think the maple barrel in this one is probably the most prominent, actually, and there's probably a bit of an addition to no, it says there's no maple syrup added into this one, actually. It's just the barrel it's been aged in. But yeah, I think the maple syrup barrel is the one that's given you the most kind of pungency out of the different barrels. You can smell a little bit of the bourbon and a bit of the sweetness of the rum, but absolutely in the sort of spirity part, I think it's the maple syrup that really kind of shines through. But yeah, the above the kind of spirit layer, you start to get things that you'd expect of the Imperial Stout. I will say it's leaning toward the sweeter end of the spectrum, this one as well, but there are elements of that roasty, toasty kind of RIS type character in this one as well. So yeah, for me, the backbone of this beer is like a kind of, I would say like a kind of brown bready bread crust. You can definitely get some of that in there. There is an element of sort of rye bread to this one for sure. So yeah, nice sort of rye bready character. Some yeah, some nice rye bready character. There's a good little bit of yes, it's kind of like an oily rye bread, in fact, and above that there's a wee bit of like sweet brown bread as well, as you'd expect, and then above that it's this big thick sticky chocolate brownie type note that you're getting out of this one. You can really smell that right away with this. The chocolatey side of this beer is quite interesting, because I think there's a little bit of a more 60% cocoa chocolate in there, but you've got a more milky chocolate, like 30 or 40% cocoa chocolate as well. Quite a bit of vanilla coming out of this beer, incidentally, and you've also got elements of nuttiness in there as well. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think, is very, very nice. So, yeah, above all of that, you start to get the brown sugars, and of course the maple syrup is ever present in this one from the barrel. But yeah, you've got some nice leathery brown sugars in there. You've got some toasty brown sugar as well. So yeah, toasty brown sugar, leathery brown sugar, a lot of like treacle and molasses and things like that, sweet caramel, and then you've got that nice little bit of there's a little touch of biscuit in there as well. But yeah, these are all things you would expect, of course, but it's just absolutely on steroids. Yeah, the way that this goes together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, aroma is just awesome. It really is. It really is just great. But yeah, in terms of the malty side of things, I think that's all we can really say. It's doing everything. It's giving you everything that you would expect of this kind of beer. The yeasty side of things at the back of the nose, again, they're kind of what you'd expect. It's like a sort of mix of chocolate muffin and chocolate brownie, maybe a little bit of oily rye bread and stuff like that, and a wee bit of like toasty bread crust. So yeah, the yeasty side of the beer is kind of in keeping with everything else that's going on. Yeah, but yeah, you can, with the level of thickness that this one has, absolutely, that's going to come, a lot of that is going to come from the oats in this beer, and a double mash, I would suspect. But yeah, let's go on to the kind of hoppy and fruity side of the beer then, just to round off the aroma. As I've said in many videos before, the Imperial Stout is not the most hop forward of beer styles. But yeah, you will get a little bit of hoppy character in these. This one, you can pick up a little bit of that green component, and the other thing is that when you barrel age a beer, quite a bit of the hoppy character will kind of drop out of it. But this one isn't too old in a sense, and of course the longer you age it, the more pronounced that effect is going to become. So yeah, you do get a little bit of green component in this one. There's a tiny little touch of earthiness to it. You've got a nice wee bit of you've got a nice little bit of grassiness in there, and a little bit of floral character as well. And then you've got these really big fruity sort of notes coming out of this one. So yeah, the way that pieces together, I think, is really quite nice. Yeah, the fruity side of the beer for me is kind of what you'd expect. There's a lot of plum in there. There is a little bit of a kind of sharper raisin. Wee bit of date, lots of fig, blackcurrant and blackberry. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer is not surprising at all. If you know the style well, you're getting what you expect here. But yeah, aroma wise, this smells absolutely beautiful. It's nothing surprising within the style category, but it is just really very, very nice smelling. I think we can say that. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time for us to have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. So this one is the Apocrypha, the maple, bourbon and rum barrel aged edition, 15.5% ABV Monster Imperial Stout from Hop Hooligans in Jilava, Romania. Let's get stuck into this. Slàinte, skål, cheers, no rock. Yeah, that is absolutely lovely. I'll tell you something, straight away you can feel that little bit of alcohol warmth down in here. It really does just hit you like that. Yeah, that is pretty damn impressive actually. Yeah, I really do like how that pieces together in this one, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. But absolutely, A big, thick, oily, slick, but still fairly creamy Imperial Stout, this one. In some ways, this actually reminds me of the Stigbergets Imperial Stout. The what was it called? I think it was just called Big Bourbon Barrel Aged Imperial Stout, the one with the lion on the label. It's very much like that, just a really big, smooth, creamy Imperial Stout aged in the barrels, but done very, very well. This beer really is in the same kind of category as that, and it's got this lovely sweetness to it from the barrel too. So yeah, this is absolutely worth trying, but be aware it is a little bit of a monster. So let's do as we always do. We'll go through the beer, break down the flavour, and just describe it for you that little bit more in depth. So yeah, the backbone of the beer is, of course, that mix of barrels in there. As I've often said, you get sweeter flavours further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours further back. And for me, the oak at the front of your palate here is very smooth. So I think it's more of the kind of rum barrel that you're getting further forward. You can feel more of the kind of vanilla and stuff in there. And I think further back on the palate, you're getting more of the kind of drier bourbon barrel out of this one. So yeah, you've got your oak wood all the way along the palate there. But yeah, further back you can feel the drier bourbon, and then as you move further forward, more of the rum and a little bit of the kind of maple in there as well, and more of the vanilla. So yeah, the spirit layer in this one is quite interesting. That does linger there into the aftertaste. So yeah. Yeah, so on top of the spirit layer, you start to get the actual malty part of the beer. So you've got a little bit of that toasty. You start to get a little bit of that kind of toasty, like sort of brown bready bread crust in there, but it's almost a little bit more like the edge of a cake. You know, that little bit of the cake that gets stuck to the baking tray. It's very much like that. So you've got that kind of cakey edge to the beer there, and on top of that, yeah, you get more of a like a chocolate sponge cake. It's very much like the kind of dryness of the chocolate sponge there, and within that you have a little bit of a kind of more nutty type character, but you can still feel some of the maple syrup laced through that. So yeah, it's a cake edge, a sort of chocolate sponge, then above that you have like a more kind of rye bready type layer, and maybe a little bit of a sweeter wholemeal brown bread on top of that. And I suspect the kind of sweeter part of the bread is probably down to the oaty character in this one. But yeah, above the sort of bready layers, you start to get the chocolate coming out of the beer. So the chocolate further forward on that middle third of your palate, it's a little bit more milky, you know, 30-40% cocoa chocolate. But then yeah, further back it's just a little bit darker, maybe like 50% cocoa chocolate. But the chocolate side of this beer is absolutely on the more milky end of the spectrum here. Above the chocolate layer, you start to get the brown sugars coming out of this one. So yeah, so the brown sugary side of this beer, it's interesting because there's a little bit of toastiness on top of there's a little bit of toasty brown sugar in there, but then yeah, you have this you've got a little bit more of a kind of leathery layer there as well, so you can get that nice kind of leathery brown sugary type character. So maybe this beer has had a slightly longer wort boil, but I think the oats are maybe contributing to the kind of leatheriness of the brown sugar and the chocolate and things too. So there's a bit of that going on. And then yeah, on top of that you have the circle in the middle of your palate, and you can feel it's like an oily sweet caramel underneath, and then in the dead center of your palate it's that kind of treacle molasses type quality, and that is of course the boozy part of the beer. One thing I will say about this beer though is that in the flavour it covers its alcohol remarkably well, but yeah, down here you can feel that little bit of, you can absolutely feel that little bit of alcohol warmth when you first take it in, but after taking a few sips that disappears quite quickly. But yeah, the only other thing I would add about the kind of middle third of your palate in this beer is that you get a little bit more nuttiness and kind of dryness out of the cakey side of the beer into the aftertaste. So yeah, I do like how all of that goes together. That gets a big thumbs up from me, like I said. So yeah, I think we can go on to the back third of the palate now, and as I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of build up in there, that sort of, in this case it's a cakey build up, so you get that chocolate spongy kind of character, then you get a little bit of the rye bread and a bit of the more wholemeal brown bread and a wee bit of the drier side of the chocolate. But yeah, the base of the back third of your palate is the kind of drier side of the oak. The bourbon is definitely present there, then you get that lighter, more airy and dry chocolate sponge, then you've got the rye bread above that, and then you've got the more wholemeal brown bread as the top layer there, and you can feel some of the drier aspects and darker aspects of the chocolate just creeping up over the top, and then the more kind of leathery, brown sugary notes kind of creeping over the top as well. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think is really, really nice in this one. But above that, yeah, you start to get the yeasty character coming out of the beer too. So let's just have a little look at that yeasty side of things. So yeah, the yeasty side of the beer for me, it's very much a kind of, yeah, it is very much like a sort of cakey type character. Like at its core, it's got a little bit of that more kind of sticky chocolate brownie type character at its core. And then yeah, around the kind of edge of that, you get a little bit more of a kind of chocolate spongy cake, and then yeah, it's more like that cake edge again. So yeah, the other thing I would say is that maybe that chocolatey layer that I was talking about in the middle third of the palate, it does evolve a little bit more as you go into the aftertaste, and it feels a little bit more sort of chocolate brownie like. So yeah, these chocolate brownie flavours kind of linger into the aftertaste with this one as well. But yeah, definitely on the back third of your palate you can feel the flavour is taller, then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate it just kind of condenses down and squashes together again. But yeah, beautiful malty character, this one I have to say. It's not quite as sweet as I remember it being, this one, but yeah, it is just really nice to kind of sit and drink this beer. Yeah, so on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's got a little touch of woody character, and that spreads forward a wee bit, but you get a little tiny bit of floral note in the front corners of your palate. Then round the front curve of the tongue, it is just that little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. So yeah, really interesting stuff again. But yeah, let's look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things, just to round off. So the border region between front and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready kind of build up in there, as you often do, although it's cakey in this case. So yeah, you've got your chocolate sponge once again, you've got your rye bready note and your more wholemeal brown bready note, and a wee bit of the chocolatey notes there. But the base of that front third of your palate, yeah, you can feel the nice smooth oaky note in there. You've got that nice little bit of kind of rum character as well. Then you have the sort of cake edge, the chocolate cake, the sort of brownie-ish layers, the rye bread, the wholemeal brown bread, and a wee bit of the kind of leathery brown sugary character and chocolate sitting above there. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, let's have a wee look at those fruity things. So yeah, fruity side of this beer, it's kind of what you'd expect, in all honesty. It's not quite as sharp as I thought it was going to be, right enough, but yeah. So at the back of that front third of your palate, you do have a little bit of a kind of oily plum. Yeah, you've got that nice kind of oily plum in there. More kind of prune, I think, into the aftertaste, and there's a lot of date. Then as you move further forward to the middle of that front third of your palate, it's a little bit more figgy, and then there's a wee bit more of a kind of black curranty. Yeah, it's more of a kind of black currant in the front half of that front third of your palate. So yeah, the way that everything kind of pieces together in this one, I think, is really quite nice. So that gets a big thumbs up for me. The fruity side of this one, it's not too prominent actually. I would have expected a bit more fruitiness based on the aroma, I have to say. But yeah, it does linger there, and it is more of a kind of black currant and a bit of date, I think, that lingers into the aftertaste with this one. But all in all, it's a really interesting beer, this one, but certainly not as sweet as I remember it being from the 2022 vintage. But maybe the fruits develop a little bit more as you age the beer, so maybe I should have sat on this one a little bit longer, who knows. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour. Let's round off with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, it's definitely full-bodied. It's pushing toward the kind of top end of that full-bodied part of the spectrum, which is quite impressive because it is barrel aged, and obviously you sacrifice a little bit of the mouthfeel with the barrel aging for that. So yeah, top end of full-bodied. Carbonation is very smooth and quite nice, and oily in this case. A little bit creamy as well, right enough. Your IBU in this one, I think, is probably quite low, maybe 30 or 40 IBUs. There's quite a bit of dryness to this beer into the aftertaste, and the sweetness is quite dry. But yeah, IBU, I think, on this one will be quite low. The malt base, as we said, you've got the woody dryness underneath. The sort of, it is quite dry in the middle as well, actually. Then you've got the dry, oily sweetness sitting on top of it. Yeah, the fruity side of things, again, is quite oily and quite dry as well. So yeah, this is a big oily, smooth, and kind of dry and sweet Imperial Stout, this one. But really enjoyable. I'm looking forward to sharing this one, and so we'll go and sip away on the last little bit of it. But yeah, I can feel the booze going to my head with this too, I have to admit. But yeah, really enjoyable beer, this one, and certainly cool to be able to do a review of this one for you here on the channel as well. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this, and call it a day. But yeah, another great beer from Hop Hooligans, but not really surprised based on my previous experiences of these guys. So yeah, this one was the Apocrypha 2024 vintage, the Maple, Bourbon and Rum Barrel Aged Edition. A really, really interesting Imperial Stout, and definitely worth trying should you get the chance. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Hop Hooligans as well, and we will return to these guys again at some point in the fairly near future. But until the next time, Slange, Skol, cheers, check out my social media, check out Hop Hooligans social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very soon. Ciao just now.